Well, hello, LifeSite friends. Jim Hale with you here. And I got to tell you, I cannot remember a time in my more than 3 years at LifeSiteNews when we have had so many blockbuster stories. It just seems like day after day. It's incredible what's going on in the world and in the United States. And we got one late yesterday afternoon, kind of early into the evening. Liberty Counsel sent out a press release, and boy, this was another big one. So a federal judge has issued a temporary restraining order that will prevent President Biden from doing what he wanted to do back in January. He issued an order attempting to force states under Title IX to permit biological males to not only compete in girls' sports, but to be able to use their dressing rooms, their showers. Sounds crazy, but that's the world we live in now. And to help us understand exactly what happened from a legal perspective, a moral perspective, everything else, is the founder of Liberty Counsel, founder and chairman Mat Staver joins us right now from Florida. Mat Staver, thank you so much for being with us today, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you.
So Matt, tell us about the significance of this restraining order.
Well, this is a great decision from this judge in Tennessee. It involves 20 state attorney generals that filed suit. So 20 states are involved in this case. And they filed suit against two defendants, the Department of Education regarding Title IX guidance with respect to athletics and women's sports, and then also the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, with regards to its application of these guidances also from the Biden administration. The good news is they're blocked, and that they would actually cause these states to have a conflict with state and other federal laws. What these particular guidances did was attempt by Joe Biden to literally take over both the schools as well as other places in the workplace and force the LGBTQ agenda in both. For example, in the context of women's sports, these would allow men to compete in women's athletics and also have access to their private rooms, such as locker rooms, shower rooms, restrooms, and other private designated facilities. And the judge indicated there that that was too much. That would cause irreparable harm to these states, and it was unlawful. So that's the good decision that just recently happened from this judge in Tennessee.
Okay, so Matt, what do you think is going on here with this? I mean, Are the Democrats, or is the Biden regime ever going to accept the fact that they have gone too far? It just seems like it gets more insane all of the time. But this is the reality. You were talking about junior high school and high school allowing a young man to go into the girls' showers.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're ever going to come close to reality. In fact, what's happened is the tail is wagging the dog on this administration and on the Democratic Party as a whole. What I mean by that is they have allowed a very radical fraction of individuals and groups that support the Democratic platform to have a voice, and they've not tried to temper them. They've actually encouraged them. And it's that radical fringe that now is the tail that wags the dog, which is the Democratic Party. And they're willing to literally destroy the country and destroy anything that's of common sense and values in order to get their agenda. And it's a very destructive agenda. It's the most radical abortion agenda that we've ever seen. It's the most radical LGBTQ agenda we've ever seen in every area. And they want to force it on every single person. We saw this, for example, in Virginia. Virginia, I think, is a microcosm of what's happening on the national level. What we saw there you had the Democratic Party machine take over the governor's office, the Senate, and the House. And for 2 years, they crammed all these abortion and other LGBTQ agendas down the throats of Virginians. And Virginians just simply said they had enough, and they made historic changes at the polls. And I think what we're seeing here is a microcosm of Virginia that could be a macrocosm across the country. You know, all of this really goes back to a deconstruction of human sexuality that began with Alfred Kinsey in his 1948 book on Sexuality in the Human Male and 1953 book, Sexuality in the Human Female. And in those books, he tried to advocate that human beings are sexual beings from birth, and that any kind of morality or restriction or inhibition with regards to any sexual activity was wrong and harmful, and that in fact he sought to abolish the very concept of gender. His ultimate goal was to abolish the very notion of God, and by abolishing gender and deconstructing human sexuality was the best mechanism to do so. And out of that ideology is what we're seeing manifested today through the radicalism of abortion and the LGBTQ agenda.
Well, Matt, did you see the video that was going around yesterday with Dr. Rachel Levine? Our what is she? He is the assistant Secretary of Health under the Biden administration, encouraging parents to allow their young children to undergo hormone replacement therapy and begin gender transition if they're having gender dysphoria.
So we really want to base our treatment and to affirm and to support and empower these youth, not to limit their participation in activities and sports, and even limit their ability to get gender affirmation treatment in their state.
I mean, if that doesn't sicken people, even moderates, or I mean, how can any parent tolerate such madness, Matt?
Well, I saw Levine also standing beside an individual, bald in this particular photograph, with a dress on. It's actually a man, and they were visiting the French ambassador. That individual that is beside Levine is someone who is advocating puppy love, which is where you have a master and a dog, and the one pretends to be a dog, the other pretends to be a master, and you put a leash on them. It's just absolute unimaginable kind of sexual deviancy, and they're trying to normalize this, and they're trying to normalize the idea that young children should take puberty blockers, which will have lots of physical consequences to them, not the least of which is infertility, but also lack of bone density and other kinds of adverse actions. Then take opposite sex hormones, which they'll have to take for the rest of their lives, then amputate healthy body parts. That's just absurd. And it's dangerous. And in fact, about 80+% of young children or adolescents that have gender confusion, they ultimately resolve naturally to be content with their birth sex without any intervention whatsoever. So imagine taking that 80% that need no counseling whatsoever, that naturally resolve, and they're content with being a boy or being a girl, where God designed them and how they were born. Now you take them and you give them puberty blockers, which is irreparable, and then opposite sex hormones, and then eventually take them down the line of surgery, amputating body parts, and irreversible situations. It's very damaging. And yet this administration is supporting that and advocating such destructive measures.
Well, Matt, the White House, they're the ones that sent out that horrific picture that you just talked about.
I know.
I mean, they're proud of this.
They're proud of it. It's like this is a Romans 1 moment where you have this rejection of God, and then you have others who are not participating in sexual deviancy per se, but they are cheerleaders for it, and they're egging them onward, and they're giving them accolades and high regards and rewards, and now in this case, giving them high governmental offices and pictures and so forth. It is the most evil thing, and it's very, very destructive. I think that even people that are on other sides of the issues on some of these are beginning to get fed up with this kind of constant drumbeat. And they're beginning to really see that this is just insane, that this can't be so. Just common sense. Why would you give your child a puberty blocker and then opposite sex hormones when you don't even give them, an aspirin in school without parental consent. And
Yes.
obviously the decisions that they make then, they're not mature enough to make certain kinds of decisions. That's why they have parental guidance. And yet this administration is pushing this down the throats of Americans all over the country. And that's what's behind this LGBTQ guidance, where they're trying to take over the public schools and use this as a place of indoctrination. And frankly, what Title IX was designed to do is to protect girls and give them equal opportunity in sports. And what this would do is allow men to not only take over those sporting positions that they work so hard for, but also intrude into their very private areas of their showers, locker rooms, and dorms and other places as well, where they do deserve privacy and protection.
You know what, Matt? It's really hard to be a sports fan anymore. I got to tell you, it's like Major League Baseball has gone gay. It seems like every professional sports league, all the universities have a gun pointed to their head. I spent most of my career as a sportscaster. I love college football. I mean, I love it all. I still check the baseball standings every single day. But man, they have all just given in to this depravity.
Well, when you look at it like this, and it just makes no sense that they would give into this, because they know that they're alienating the vast majority of their viewers, their attendees at these events, and supporters who otherwise would enjoy the sport. But they've literally turned it off because it's gotten too political and too, frankly, anti-American, anti-freedom, anti-just common sense. You would think that common sense would say, just play the game of baseball, just play the game of football. Don't get involved in these other issues. If you have your own particular views, that's fine. Corporations, just produce the product and do it with excellency, but don't get involved in this advocacy for abortion and LGBTQ, et cetera. And yet they do it. The only way that I can explain that is it is really a spiritual issue, because it makes no common sense for the sports athletes or the teams or the corporations to get involved in this kind of very destructive agenda that is frankly rejected by the vast majority of the American public.
Well, that's right, Matt. Thank you so much for saying that, because I still just do not accept that the American public is going to ever stand for this kind of just insanity. Nor do I believe that all these professional baseball players, football players, basketball players actually buy into this. They're just keeping their mouth shut because their agents tell them they have to do it. But Matt, talk to me about Liberty Counsel. You guys are always in the trenches. You take on any injustice that we see out there, especially when it involves infringing upon religious freedom issues in general. The work that you guys do is just incredible. We just considered you guys almost like family. I mean, Jonathan Alexander, Peggy, Greg, all the people here in Washington, D.C. How do you guys do it, Matt? I mean, how do you decide which of these big cases you're going to go for?
Well, that's always difficult. We have a great team of people. They're very dedicated to the mission. They love the Lord, and they are hard workers and very talented. So I'm very blessed to have such an incredible group of people on our Liberty Counsel team. But what we do is we look at any individual case. We obviously assess the facts and the law and the implication of that particular situation that comes before us. And then obviously we have to take into consideration our resources. We've had so many, for example, in the COVID shot mandate, we had about 40,000 people that we've worked with around the country. So that was much more than we could handle with our staff. So we worked with about 120 of our affiliate attorneys around the country and gave them special training to help advance and help represent and give counsel to some of these individuals needing help. But obviously, there's so much going on, especially now with this administration. There's so much that is happening with regards to an attack on religious freedom, the sanctity of human life, and God's design for family.
Yeah. And we know, Matt, this is really an attack on Christianity, because they would never treat Muslims this way, or Sikhs or anybody else.
No, I mean, if you look at, for example, what's happening in the military, these men and women are being abused by the COVID shot mandate under a Biden with the Department of Defense, and Joe Biden's mandate that began on August 24, 2021. And if you really look at it, they're really trying to single out people of faith. And those individuals are the ones that submitted their religious accommodation request. So if you're HIV positive, that's okay. If you're transgender and you want to take opposite sex hormones for the rest of your life, and you want to go through plastic surgery, and once you go through the surgery, you're non-deployable for about 2 years, that's okay. You can serve in the military. And in fact, they're going to give you video training on how to use proper pronouns. But if you're a person of faith and otherwise healthy, perhaps you even have natural immunity, but you object to the COVID shots because of their association with aborted fetal cell or other religious-based reasons, then they want to punish you. And they're punishing them in a brutal, abusive way. So many stories, we don't have time to go through them, but they are punishing these individuals, humiliating them. These are people of the highest order that's threatening national security and military readiness. So on the one hand, they're welcoming HIV, they're welcoming transgender, but they're not welcoming to, and they're trying to boot out people of faith. So it is really an attack on Christianity. It's an attack on not only Christianity in the military, but everywhere else. And in fact, you even see it this term. We've had an incredible term at the United States Supreme Court, beginning on May the 2nd with our 9-0 win in the Shurtleff versus City of Boston case regarding the Christian flag, ending on June 27 with the Coach Kennedy case praying on the football field in the abolition of the 1971 so-called Lemon Test. And in between, we had the school voucher case, and we had the momentous historic case on June 24, overturning Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. A huge term of the United States Supreme Court. And then you see the backlash to that. And this is just Supreme Court justices, like in our case. They can't explain a 9-0 win. They can call it whatever they want to. They have a really hard time in our case where we have 9-0, not a single dissenter in our case.
Right, and that was a Liberty Counsel case, right?
That's right. I argued that on January 18. We got the decision on May the 2nd. So they have a hard time trying to pigeonhole that case because it's 9-0. It's not 5-4. It's not 6-3. It's 9-0. And but they still want to try to pigeonhole it and say, well, these are just people that are trying to force their religion down our throats. No, we're trying to have constitutional protection, just like everybody else, equal opportunity, like in the Shurtleff case, equal opportunity to have the same opportunity to the form everybody else has. In the Coach Kennedy case, to not be punished when you kneel down and you're thinking a silent prayer to God versus kneeling down and you're thinking, where you're going to order pizza after the game.
Right.
One's okay, one's not. If they think you're thinking thoughts to God, then they want to terminate you. If you're thinking secular thoughts, it's okay. It just makes no sense. Right. We're not trying to push religion down your throat. We're just trying to have equal opportunity and protect the Constitution on the matter of abortion. Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, they never had any constitutional basis in the United States Constitution.
Amen to that. And well, of course, it's okay too if you want to kneel down, and pay homage to BLM and that kind of thing.
Right. You want to kneel down and protest the flag and and pump your fist for BLM. That's okay. But if you want to kneel down, bow your head, and you want to have a silent prayer to God, that's not okay. And that's the kind of world that they want us to live in.
Well, you know what, Matt? I'm glad we have people like you in our world. You're a warrior, brother. I thank you for everything you and all your team do. You do it with excellence. And thank you also for being so generous with your time. You always come on when we call, and I know you've been getting a lot of media requests today. So just thanks so much, brother. And please know that all of our viewers are going to be praying for Liberty Counsel. I'm going to ask you guys right now, please pray for Liberty Counsel because they're going to have a lot more battles coming up in the days ahead. Mat Staver, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. You just put everything in perspective in such a great way. Well, we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And you all are doing such an incredible job. We have the highest recommendation and appreciation for what you do.
Thank you, Matt. God bless you, brother.
Thanks. Bye-bye.